Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session of Josefine Meets. And today I have a very special guest. I have Martin Riley as my guest today, and he is the inventor of the business jet engine. And the business jet engine is a super fantastic tool that everyone can use who is either a startup business or like a middle big middle big business or a larger corporation. And we have the possibility or the opportunity today to actually meet Martin and talk through these 17 really important steps. We're not going to go into them into detail, but you will get a very good idea on what you need to focus on and what steps you need to take. So hi, Martin, happy to have you here.
Hello, and thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
And if you could just give us a little bit of a background of who you are and what you've done before, I think that would be super helpful.
Yes, with pleasure. I'm a business and leadership coach. Predominantly with the business coaching, I tend to work with smaller businesses, your micros, up to kind of 20, 30 people, helping them get their strategy plans in place and turn those into action. With the larger organizations, it tends to be about strategy facilitation using the business jet engine, and then developing the whole leadership team, because it's then about how do you influence yourself and others to get those plans turned into action. And I guess the thing that, we all have something that makes us a little bit different. And my first career was in product design. And so what I do is bring a whole set of design thinking to the way I approach things. And particularly with design, it's all about how do you take the complex and make it simple and easy to understand and use. And what I realized, there was a big challenge that many people, although they're great at what they do, they're not experts in business. And I set out to try and solve that challenge to help people be better business, better leaders and better business owners or directors.
Yeah, and I definitely think this is so important because even though we are well educated, like high educations, we have had top executive roles in the corporation, but it still hasn't really prepared us for being a business owner or being the entrepreneur, because there are so many different hats and many different roles that, especially in the beginning, we have to do all of these roles ourselves. And then when we start to outsource them, it might still be difficult to actually really empower someone else to take the decisions, because first of all, it's our business, so it's our little baby, and we know, or we think we know, what's best for our business, right? So how would you say
This is a
how would
really
you
common issue. I see this the
yeah.
whole time. Yeah, I can give you a little breakdown of how this all goes terribly wrong, but please carry on.
No, but I think that is an amazing. I think let's start there. So
Yeah.
what are the risks if we continue as um, the person who takes all the decisions? First of all, we become a huge bottleneck, and we probably work more than what we intended to do, because now we also don't only need to do all the tasks, but we also need to take all the decisions, and we need to kind of direct people in the different areas. So if we could start looking into what are the potential risks for continuing like that.
Well, what you've described is just such a common challenge as businesses try and grow and scale. And if you think about it, this is how it certainly is in the UK. I see this all the time. So often we start our careers, our vocations, learning to do the task, learning to do the job. And if we get good at that, and to get good, we tend to be driven, we tend to be something of a perfectionist, and then we get promoted. And what happens is we're now managing people and projects. We're at the operational level, we've gone up a level, but very rarely are we properly trained. Nobody says, you now have to get really good at people skills and you have to get really good at project management. So what we tend to do is we are now in charge of those things, but no one's given us proper training. And we tend to operate how we've seen people above us who may have had no training either. That's, if we're really lucky, we've had a great role model, and then we find it much easier. But so we go to this new level. So think about it. We're a perfectionist driver. We got really good at doing the task level, but now we have people underneath us. So what we're asking people to do is now hand over and delegate to someone who's new, who's basically going to mess up what you perfected. How easy is that?
Hmm. Yeah.
So what goes wrong is, firstly, people aren't properly training the people underneath them so they can totally confidently hand over. My mantra is, if you can't delegate, they need training. And if they can't be trained, why did you hire them? So also the person who's now being operational needs to learn those skills, and that training is often not properly in place. If they get good at that, or sometimes not, they get promoted again and they're now being strategic. This is about abstract thinking. You're trying to make guesses with complete lack of certainty. This is the way we're going to go to succeed. So it's an abstract thinking skill, whole new skill set. And we have to take that on. But again, if we haven't built almost the base underneath us of people who can now project manage and manage people, again, we don't have time to be strategic. We may not have the skills to be strategic, particularly engaging all the different aspects of a business that we need to consider. So there's more I could say, but this is how it kind of goes wrong, that we don't train and develop the base properly underneath us, but also we're not being properly trained ourselves in people management, project management, and then also strategic thinking. How do we plan a business strategically? Who teaches us that?
What would be like because I think it's also hard to really. I had a discussion with a client about this yesterday, and she was a managing director in one of her former roles, and she has an MBA, and to actually say I need help,
Yeah,
to reach out to someone else, and because it has a lot to do with pride, right?
yeah.
So what is how I mean, sometimes just do it, right? Because in the end, people will save so much time by hiring someone else to help them see those blind spots. But what are the most common, I would say, excuses that you meet from people who say, oh, I could do this myself, or I could continue doing this, so that we can meet those excuses with the kind of like, okay, so what are the reasons why they should then do it?
Well, you raise such a good point, and I think there's a couple of things behind this. And one is, I think there's a feeling that if I need to ask for help, I've failed. Whereas
Hmm.
you look at top athletes, they all have a coach. They all understand that just because someone is on the outside giving you feedback, helping you see what you can't, doesn't mean they could do your job. All they're doing is helping you perform better. And they often
Yeah.
know the maze, the labyrinth you're in. They know the systems and processes you're trying to perfect. I think there's another phenomena that certainly happens in the UK, and it almost comes down from the old public school system, or private school as it's called in some countries. And there's this sense that you need to just be naturally gifted at everything. And people go through that system frantically trying to accomplish and achieve, but looking like it's just a natural gift, born to lead, born to rule. And
Yeah.
it kind of comes down through everyone else, that actually there's a shame, there's a failure in actually it just not being your natural God-given gift to be a great leader, to be a great strategist, to be a project manager, people manager, all the skills we're meant to have, that we only really have if we had great role models or we've had proper
Oh, yeah.
training.
Yeah, very, very good. Absolutely. So if we then start looking into the business jet engine, if we could
Mhm.
kind of start unraveling a little bit what's really in that, because it is an engine. So it is a little, it's not as if it's like, you have a start and you have a finish, because
Yeah.
there are so many different moving things that are in this, which I think actually it's a little bit of a relief that sometimes when we are overwhelmed, to see, if you look at your picture or the model that you have, to say, no wonder I'm overwhelmed, as I I have to have all of these things under control, right?
And that's such a good point, because so often I find, clients, when I lay it out for them, they go, no wonder I've been struggling to keep
Yeah.
on top of all of this. And that really hits, one of the challenges. Most businesses want to improve. Even if they're good, they want to be great. If they're great, they still want to be even better. And one of the big challenges I find for the smallest businesses to the large businesses is trying to identify those top high impact strategic priorities or goals that are going to move the business forward. And particularly take the small business owner, we're bombarded with advice, what to fix, change, or improve. And the temptation is to try and fix too many things at once.
Mhm.
So we can sort of end up confused, overwhelmed, burnt out, or through uncertainty, we try and fix nothing, because we just don't know which to do, or we just work harder, hoping things will
Mhm.
change. And of course, all that happens is we just end up working harder. It rarely actually improves things. So I spotted that there was this huge need to help business owners see their business as a system, and therefore see the cause and effects relationships, and be able to go, actually, if there was one thing I fixed this year, and then a second, or maybe even a third, this would move me on significantly. So this was the problem I set out to solve.
Mhm.
The other set of challenges I spotted was there's your kind of your startups, and they don't know what they don't know. They know they've had some initial successes, but they also know they're winging it, and they can run into such trouble and get caught out by something that's going to blindside them. So the jet engine, because it lays out the journey so many businesses go on, it helps them look ahead and put the right things in place sooner than later. It can save them 10 years of mistakes.
Mm.
Your medium-sized small business, which has maybe 3, 10, 20 staff, so often your business owner's heavily embroiled in the business. They're either involved in delivery or managing people and projects. They don't have time to work on the business, that classic conundrum.
Yeah.
So they're time poor. And what this gives them is a really fast and effective way of choosing those priorities and turning them into plans. And your bigger organizations, we were talking about these kind of silos that, how do you
Yeah.
get people working together? What the jet engine does is give a process that can be facilitated so that they can get everybody involved, not just a wider leadership team, but even middle managers or anyone else. So it gets people, one, understanding the plans, but also feeling like they've got an ownership of them. They help come up with some of the ideas. So then there's much more alignment and engagement. People know why we're doing what we're doing.
Exactly. That everyone sees that this is what I contribute with. And I think that was one thing that was missing in my corporate role, because it felt as if I was, making like very like making PowerPoint
Mm-hmm.
presentations for meetings that I wouldn't attend myself, and I had no clue. Well, I did know why, but it felt as if it was so far away from any vision or mission or anything. But when we have everyone has like a common goal. We know
Mm-hmm.
what it is that we're striving for, and everyone knows that their role in the organization is super important,
Yeah. And
and
that's
that
so essential
everything
that people
puts.
know why,
Yeah.
don't they? They know this matters. This is leading to
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that is also what gives the people motivation to actually keep going, even when sometimes it's not every day is a happy day at work, right? But when you know why you're going there, you have a purpose of bringing this business forward, or you know how your particular role can bring this business forward. I think that is super duper important. So shall we dive into the business jet engine?
Sure. So most people in business know there's some basics you've got to get right. And this is like the heart of business. So in our metaphor of getting an aircraft up in the air, this is the heart of the jet engine. And you've got to have the problem you solve for your clients, your product or service. You've got to look after
Mhm.
your customers. That's your customer service. You've also got to have your operations, how you efficiently and effectively deliver that product or service. So that's your kind of your engine. And in the journey, people kind of get that right, but then they realize they don't have enough work, and they realize they've got an engine, they've got to get air in, and that's your sales and marketing cycle. And there's a number of parts to getting the sales and marketing right. That's the air. And typically what happens when they're starting out, a few years later, they've worked really hard, they've got lots of work coming through, and they go, my accountant has just told me I've made this much profit, but there's no money in the bank to pay the tax. I've now got to get serious about the finances. So you've got to get the fuel in the engine. That's the finance cycle, which all starts with pricing and creating profit, reinvesting and using your management accounts. Then you've got your engine roaring away. The business is going much better. But up until now, the business owner has hired casually. They've just said, I need someone.
Mm.
And that's the people side. And if you've got rubbish people, it's like having an upside down wing. It grinds you down. When you've got the
Mm.
right profile people, then you take off and you get lift. So
Mhm.
there's the wing, which is the next part to get right.
Mhm.
Then, of course, if you're flying around in a jet aircraft, you can't really do that. That's illegal for a start. You need plans. So we now need the captain in the cockpit with his dials dashboard. So this is your plans and your targets, your goals, your overall business KPIs to know you're on track and you can course correct. So now finally, within all of those areas, there's 17 smaller parts. So we end up seeing 17 key parts that make a business work at its best. And in
Mm.
the process, what I get clients to do is, for those 17 parts, is score each area out of 10 for where we want to be at the end of this year. How well do we have that area organized? How well do we have things in place? 10,
Mm.
we couldn't be better. 5, we're just good enough. 0, it's neglected totally. And
Mm.
when we score them, then clients can suddenly see their business as a system. And they can see the cause and effect relationships, because the question I love to get to is, if you were going to fix, change, or improve or implement something in just one area, the high impact area that would make the biggest difference, have the biggest knock-on effect, which would you fix this year? And that really focuses their minds. And
Yeah,
then we look at a second and then maybe a third.
What did you mean? What, a second and a third?
Well,
Focus area.
there may be one
Yeah,
area that really needs to be sorted this year, but
yeah,
then we go, okay, if you're ambitious and you're going to get a second key area fixed, which would it
yeah.
be? And which would be the third? And then suddenly we have quite a comprehensive plan for the next, 9, 12, even 18 months that gives them a real focus. And the great thing is, because we then create some subtasks to achieve those goals.
Hmm.
So they might end
Hmm.
up with 9, 10, 11 subtasks, sub projects. And
Hmm.
then they might look at those and go, actually, which of those do I need to tackle first? And it may not necessarily be the one they came up with first. There's a kind of logical order to go, actually, to move this forward, I need to do that and then that. But we can focus on them one at a time. And that's where
Yeah.
the real beauty comes in. Bigger organizations can tackle several at a time. But even then, they don't want to action all 9, 12, sub projects, because the organization, I've seen it too often, gets entangled. People lose track of
Yeah,
which
and
one's the
if you
priority.
start to change some things up here, it will probably have a ripple effect of something down here that you might not have foreseen before,
Yes.
right?
But also, what so often happens is, by fixing one thing well, there's beneficial knock-on effects to the other
Yeah.
areas. Things will improve across the company. Say, for example, if you improve your marketing, there will be a knock-on effect through the rest of the business. But it
Yeah.
may be that you've then got to improve your operations, or you get a bottleneck of new work coming in, you're not delivering well. So it may
Yeah.
be you actually go, well, maybe we should improve our operations first, then that will free time for better marketing. And then as that new work comes in, we can handle it better than we used to. So the logical thing is, let's sort the operations. So,
Mm.
it just helps us think much more strategically
Hmm.
where to start, what comes second, what comes third. So we get focused, but we also go, I don't need to think about the other bits yet. I know I'm
Hmm.
getting to them. I can relax. Let's get this good enough. Then I'll get on to the next bit.
Yeah, because I think that takes out so much overwhelm. And, like, it's like throwing up all these balls in the air, and all of a sudden you have all of these balls a bit more under control. You know that this is not right where I want it to be, but I know what it is and I have it under control.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant, really good. Yeah,
Yeah. Or it may be I can just do a small tweak to this to get it good enough.
yeah.
Just I may not have any, my finances may be in a mess. Then maybe I need some basic finances, like some sales targets, properly understand my expenses. So I've got a budget, a plan for profit, because I didn't have that. So
Mhm,
let's get that sorted quickly, some
mhm.
essentials. Then let's fix a few other areas, and I'll come back to the finances, and then really get some good management accounts and, really good KPIs in place that I'm going to
Yeah.
drive the business forward with.
And you mentioned it before, we get so bombarded by all of this advice, especially if you're on social media too. You
Yeah.
see, you think you have something sorted out, and then you see all of these copywriters popping up, and you realize, oh, maybe I should work on my messaging, or things like that. So,
Mhm.
how do you, when you have clients who come like, yeah, but I should do this, and I should do that, and I should do that, how do you manage them to get them to focus on the right thing?
Well, again, that's what I love about laying it out as a system and getting them to score it. And the other thing I should say is, when you have, more people than one in the room, often they'll come up with a different score. And that's such a great conversation piece to understand, well, why have you scored it a 9? And I'm saying it's a 4. I mean, that's quite extreme. It's not normally that far off, but sometimes it is. And that's great for correcting misconceptions or misperceptions, because normally,
Yeah.
and the truth may be somewhere in between. But it's really by coming up with a score, it starts to become much more logical and not emotional. We can look at it and analyze it, and there's never one right answer, but we get much closer to a better answer, and then go, well,
Mm.
let's make a decision. and let's act on it, knowing that we may not know, because that's the whole thing with planning. We can't ever truly say for absolute certain this is the right thing to do. But what we want to do is raise our chances, raise our strike rate of creating
Mm.
better plans.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So if someone is a little bit, they've just recently started out their business, they're thinking about maybe they should hire their first person. How would you say that they should? What would be their first step to hire the right person? Because that's also one thing that's.
Ah, you've got me on. You're hitting all my hotspots here. I love this question. But because people don't hire well, and the traditional way is you get your job spec loosely defined, you put out an advert, you get some CVs, you might interview some people, invite back the shortlist and choose the best of three. Now the
Mm,
chances are you might be choosing the best of three not very appropriate people. So I take a slightly different approach. I mean, firstly, would you ever buy a secondhand car based on the tech spec in the window and what the salesman tells you? And most people go, absolutely not, Martin. No, I take it for a test drive. And we need to sort of adopt more of that philosophy with hiring. Is interviews and interview questions, we just find out, are they good at answering interview questions? So what I
yeah.
get clients to do is, firstly, they have to think through, what do I really need in this role?
Mm,
And what do I need in three key areas? One is C, the competence, the technical abilities
hmm
in the job. The
hmm
second is the drive, the drive, the motivation, the attitude, the character qualities I need for this role to succeed. And the third
hmm
is the relationships, people skills, communication skills, teamwork skills. Because what I've
hmm
seen too often is in a business, there's somebody who's great technically, but unfortunately they really don't give a damn, and they upset everybody, to put it mildly. And when you see that, they're great at one thing, but those other two, they're really dragging the business down. But if we only look at
mm,
the competence, we miss that. So I get people to score in the C, D, and the R, the competence, the drive, and the relationships, and come up with, say, about 5 or 7 mission critical qualities that they must have for this role to succeed. And it helps create a
mm,
really defined job spec, which is part of your contract. This is the job I'm paying you to do, not half do. So it makes things really clear. And then what we have to do is look at simple but clever ways of checking for those skills. And we're going to score, because I always like to try and score, have I evidenced sufficiently that they can do that skill? So for example, if you were hiring someone to do cold calling, a very simple filter, you like the CV, is you just send them a message saying, please contact me to arrange an interview. They have to pick up the phone and figure out, you give them minimal information, because someone cold calling has to have the
should
courage to go,
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
what do they want me to do? I'm calling blind. Who do I even ask for? You may not even put a contact on there, and they have to
Yeah.
get through, who is it I need to talk to? Or say they have to be really good at process, or following detailed instructions. You might send us your CV. We want it on A4. We want you to use 11-point Adobe Caslon typeface. You can't ask for photographs anymore, but back in the day, you might say we want a 3x2 centimeter black and white photograph, 2 millimeters from the top left-hand corner. Half your candidates are going to say, they don't need that. I'll send what I always send. That's how they'll work for you. So you have to look at just simple but creative ways of filtering out the people who don't have the qualities you need and getting people to demonstrate they do have the qualities you need. And you
Mm,
score that you've evidenced it.
mm,
Now, some people may not have the skill, but also if they don't have the skill, could they be trained? So maybe they sit and do some tasks with you and you find out, well, they don't know how to do it, but what are they like if I work with them and I show them this? Is it a nice experience? Do they pick it up quickly? Or are they just,
hmm
sorry, no, show me again? There's no engagement.
Yeah.
So this way you can really raise your strike rate. And with the scoring, you want to make sure out of 10, they're between a sort of potential 8, 9, or 10 out of 10. You're going to have a potential A player. Why hire anything less? Because it will just drag you down. I don't know if you know the
hmm
80-20 rule with kind of people. I presume
Yeah.
you know the 80-20 rule. There's
Yeah.
20% of what you do creates 80% of the results you want. If you
Yeah.
hire poor performers, you spend 80% of your time trying to get poor performers to perform, to do the job you're paying them to do. You're actually doing more of the work in some respects than they are. And that's hugely demoralizing and draining. and that stops you getting on with growing your business. Whereas if you have
Mhm.
top performers, you spend 80%, sorry, 20% of your time planning, liaising, coordinating, delegating, handing stuff over they bring back better than you have time to do yourself. That
Mhm.
leaves you 80% of your time to get on with growing your business. And that's hugely energizing and motivating. So it's
Yeah.
so key to hire, the best people that really are going to help your business grow. Otherwise, it just drags you down, and it's very hard to get your aircraft off the ground.
Yeah.
The upside down wing if it's the wrong people.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that was brilliant. So thank you so much, Martin, for that deep dive a little bit in hiring the right people, because I think that is really core. And I bet all of these things are really great. So there's a huge need for this, for what you're offering. So how can people best connect with you, Martin?
The simplest way is to go to my website, which is the three W's, businessjetengine.co.uk. And if they look there, there is on the homepage at the bottom, there's all my sort of social media connections. And I'm mainly on sort of LinkedIn and Facebook. I am on other channels, but the ones I focus on most are LinkedIn and then Facebook. But also, if they want to know more, the book is available on Amazon, which is the simplest, the cheapest way of getting a lot of, it's crammed with top tips and ideas and how to drive the jet engine process. But also on the website, there is a free download that gives them an interactive demonstration, gets them involved in using the jet engine process. But there's
Mhm.
also some information on the CDR hiring, the expert hiring. So, they can have a recap of what we've just talked about there.
Oh, thank you so much. And I will make sure that I will add all the links to all your, so that people really, they don't need to go and search for it. So thank you so much, Martin, for being my guest and for really sharing your knowledge and your expertise with us.
It's an absolute pleasure. The problem is when you get me started on these subjects, I'm so passionate about them that yeah, it's hard to get me to stop. But thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it was lovely having you.
My pleasure.